pull up my little list here. So yeah, so you asked me what the 3 things are that I didn't know about the home buying process that I've learned now since I became a realtor. So I wrote down 3 things. I'm curious if you wrote down 3 things as well, just like from a lending perspective. But my 3 big things that I've learned with just the experience that I've gained is get ready before you're ready. There's almost never a perfect house, and so that has to do with like inspections or like maybe a house isn't going to check off every single want and need, and there's a little bit of compromise or some stuff you have to do in the future type of stuff. And then also detaching from the outcome and having faith that it's all going to work out how it's supposed to. Yeah. So I kind of want to dive into each one of those, but do you have anything that you've really thought of?
I think that I don't know that. I would have, been more responsible, with my credit and had an understanding of exactly how that was going to impact me, going forward. Because then, maybe I would have been on the first mortgage, that I was on, and then so I would have just kind of like fiscal responsibility, maturity. But again, I was like, I was in a band, like that was I didn't care, man.
Right.
And so, and then I don't know anybody who doesn't, at my age, who's not like, I should have like looked at owning real estate like soon, you know what I mean? So there's like that kind of fundamental stuff. Yeah. But in terms of the lending side, there's nothing. I think I feel like it's a little different than the actual house because the house is what you have to live in. The house is the thing that you experience. The house is the thing that, like, you have like the loan around it, you have the home buying process, but at the end of the day, you're in a house. For sure. So I think that I'd be intrigued as to, how, like, now that you do it professionally all the time. Yeah. Because a lot of times people buy a house, maybe once a decade or something. It's not something that you do all the time. Yeah. And now you have firsthand experience with it every day. Yeah.
So I was thinking about it because, like, when you asked me that question, I was like, okay, like, what are the things that I've learned since being a realtor? And I'm like, of course, all the weeds of the business, right? But like, as far as like value to like the people watching, it's like, okay, like that's my job is to help guide them through that process as we're going through it. And every situation is so unique with like, one person might need extra help over here or over there, whatever. So like, I was trying to think like, okay, what are the big 3 main things that just like happen basically in every single scenario or like the majority of the scenarios, right? And so like first, which we talk about all the time is like, get ready before you're ready, right? Because we all know like, and I started breaking this down like, okay, what's that look like what's that mean for a buyer? What's that mean for a seller? And for a buyer, it's that person that's casually scrolling through Zillow because it's fun to look at houses, right? But then they see the one, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, like this actually meets everything I want. Like, let me reach out to Michael to see if we can go look at this house. And then I say, yeah, let's go do it. Like, have you been pre-approved? No. And I'm like, okay, well, we really need to do that first, see if this is even something you can afford. And then by that time, like the dream house is too late, right? So, and then on the sell side, it's, if you need to sell and you wait till the last minute to reach out, like, hey, I think we're going to be, I don't know what the situation, like actually a perfect scenario is a closing I have going on tomorrow where the couple reached out, hey, we're thinking about buying this house in Excelsior. It's been on the market for a while. We want to go check it out. I'm like, okay, I've got pre-approved. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we go check out the house, and we look at a couple other ones. We're like, yeah, this is the house we want. We're like, okay, perfect. What are we doing with your guys' house? Because they're contingent, right? And they're like, oh, we don't know. And it's like, go check their house out, and like not ready for the market at all. I'm like, guys, like we're 6 weeks out for this house being ready to hit the market, right? And so thankfully we were able to get an investor in there and give them the price they needed to make the numbers work. But it was just like, I was like, guys, if you guys they have a new baby too, a 4-month-old baby. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, guys, there's no way we're getting this house ready for the market. Yeah. Right. And so just, again, being prepared on the front end of like us right now, like we're thinking about, we're either going to sell our house or rent it out or whatever. That's probably not for 6 more months. But right now through our mind, we're like, okay, what do we need to start doing to get this house ready? Because we know sooner or later people are going to be walking through this thing. Yeah. And you know, if you have a 6-month timeline, it's a lot less stressful than if you have a 3-week timeline, right? So
I mean, it's still going to be a stressful 3
it's
weeks.
stressful
whether you give
no
me 3
matter
weeks or
what.
6 months
Yeah,
to do it.
exactly.
I'm not going to do it until the last 3 weeks
yeah,
anyway.
procrastination, yeah. But yeah, so that's like the first thing is just, again, and life happens. So, you know, sometimes stuff pops up and it's got to be this fast thing. But the more runway you give yourself for this process, the easier it's going to be, less stressful it's going to be. And I just see it happen so often that people wait until like that house pops up that they want to buy, and then they try to catch up, and then they miss out on that opportunity, or it's just way more stressful than it needs to be.
I have a client right now that I'm working with that was referred to me. They're making a move from Texas to Virginia, 2 states that I'm licensed in, and they want to make the move in July. And so they're like first-time home buyers, just want to connect with you, figure out what the process is, do the initial app, have some conversations with them. I'm going to do a Zoom call, but they need jobs. Like their jobs aren't going to transfer. And so they were like, this is exactly why we wanted to start the process. And so I'm like good on you, because that is like some foresight. You know, you get into a situation like they're going to interview for jobs. Like you don't have to have started a job, but we need to know what's going on and have offer letters and things like that. And so, versus now the person who doesn't do that, who doesn't prepare, and maybe you've seen something similar to this, they try to throw it all together in a weekend because they saw like what they think is the perfect house. They didn't get that house, but now they're getting like locked down. They're getting it figured out because they learned that lesson of disappointment. Or I guess, you know, I've also had situations where people are like, well, I'm out. You know?
And those are kind of like false opportunities anyways, because it's like, okay, that was never probably really a thing anyways. Like it was just this like excitement, and then like, you know, impulse kind of kicked in, like, whoa, let's slow down for a second. So that happens for sure. But yeah, even like, again, for us, like we're trying to figure out what the heck we're doing, right? Like, okay, like ideally we'd like to rent our house out, but how's that work with our debt to income, with, you know, 2 mortgages, and like, do we HELOC it? Do we completely pay off our credit cards? Do we pay off Kelsey's car? Like, but there's all these different things, right? And so we're like, okay, well, we need to sit down with the lender first and just kind of figure what that looks like. And then we actually have an actionable game plan of like, okay, if we do this, this, and this, then we can afford this. Or, hey guys, it's not going to work out. You're going to have to sell that house to afford the next one.
So did you start with a lender in your situation?
No.
You guys just started looking at houses?
No, I had to get my taxes done first.
So I'm talking about like back when you bought the first house with you and Kelsey. Did you start with a lender, or how did that process look at that time?
So we had a family friend that was a realtor.
Okay.
And I believe she recommended her lender. And then, so got pre-approved with all that stuff, and then just really went out and started looking at houses.
Yeah. And so I mean, that obviously, so you had a family friend, so they were able to kind of guide you to figuring that stuff out. Yeah. But I'm sure you have people all the time that don't have that family friend, and they're just like giving you a call off of, you know, whatever, and having to.
Yeah, and then you're explaining that process. Yeah, exactly.
So it was so it wasn't like the worst situation that you guys, you know, went through. You at least had like the financing stuff. You understood that was a piece of it, and handled that up front.
Yeah, and again, 2016, I seem like there was a ton of inventory. I mean, I haven't looked at the stats, but I mean, I feel like we'd go look at. Yeah. There'd be just plenty of houses to go look at. I think for under $100,000.
I think I bought a house in 2016. But yeah, I mean, the first time I bought, like the very first house, the transaction that I was a part of, I mean, that was, you know, got a realtor immediately. The realtor was like, hey, talk to this lender. So we were down that path as well. Yeah.
I feel like this time around, it's going to be completely different than it was our first time, just because there's more moving parts. It's a different market now. Yeah. So I'll be interested to see how that goes once we like actually get into it. Yeah.
But you know, it's not something you're just going to do over a weekend. You're going to be planning for it, and you have been planning for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I kind of laid out the game plan, right? I'm like, okay, I can't do anything until I get 2 years of tax returns. So I got to figure out my taxes. Got that done yesterday, or I got them filed. I still need to pay them. Yeah. And then once we get that, then I can talk, you know, to you about like, okay, what do we got to do next? We got, you know, got some credit card stuff. Got like a car that's almost paid off. We got this house payment. We want to try to hold it. Like what, you know, start messing with all the moving parts and all that stuff and kind of figure out what's going on. So, and And then as far as second point with it being, there's almost never a perfect house.
Yeah.
I said that because no matter what house you buy, even a new construction house, like if you do inspections, it's not perfect. Like there's something that pops up on everything.
Yep.
Like we did a sewer scope on a brand new house and the sewer was jacked up.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, there's just all kinds of different stuff. And so I think people, especially first-time home buyers, have this expectation of like, oh, this looks so nice. Like inspections are going to be a breeze, especially if it's an old house. Like there's always stuff that pops up, like codes change.
Yeah.
You get owners that try to DIY some stuff instead of paying professionals and whatnot. And so I feel like that's just a good expectation to set up front with anybody buying a house. It's, hey, like nothing's perfect. Here, I actually show people, I'm like, here's what an inspection report looks like. Like this is the same price point of the house you're buying, and it's got 20 safety hazards. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but that's like a GFCI. That's not, or whatever. So it's like, hey, this is what normal looks like. Because again, people only do this once a decade or whatever, right? And so they don't have, it's all about perspective. And so like, if you just see an inspection report, like, me or you or somebody else in the industry might be, oh yeah, that's a pretty normal report, right? Like that's nothing crazy. But if this is the first inspection report you've seen, you might be like, holy crap, this thing is about to fall apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I had I've built 2 houses in my life, 2 new properties. And in both scenario, after a year of being in the house, we still were like dealing with some stuff that was like, I can't believe we're still dealing with this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, they're still just like built by people, right? And you're still going to have, things like that come up.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, you're not going to find anything that's perfect.
Yeah.
Even brand new out of the box.
Yeah. And so I prep people. I'm like, hey, we're looking for major stuff here, right? Like, does the roof need to be replaced? Do we have like major foundation issues? Is there major plumbing, major electrical, right? Like big ticket items. Like we're not talking about, like Sam was just telling me about a deal. He has a listing where the buyer came in as is box 1, which means you can do inspections, but you're not going to ask for any repairs.
Yeah.
They come back saying they want a new garage door. They want like insulation added to the Freon line on the AC unit, which is that little tiny little pool noodle looking thing. And we're like, that's like a $2 part. You know what I mean? So it's like, so again, like it's a first time home buyer property. And again, these first time home buyers and really just even second, third time home buyers, if they're just not really aware of what's going on, they'll see this stuff and kind of blow it out of proportion. Like, oh my gosh, this house just needs all this work.
Well, what's interesting is that a lot of our conversations are buyer side conversations, right? But you have depending on who you have your agency with, who you're advocating for.
Yeah.
And so I have an agent, and we were talking about a situation. It was cash. It was a transaction I wasn't involved with, and she was just talking about she was the listing agent.
Okay.
And she was saying they sent over a list of stuff, and none of it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And so she tells her client, I don't think any of this is a big deal. I'm going to tell them like we're not going to fix any of it. And the client was like, okay, And so she did. She went back and she was like, this is all rinky-dink stuff. This is not a brand new house that you're buying. And the people were like, okay, fine.
Yep.
And it was interesting because, she saved her seller money. And none of the issues were like any kind of safety issue. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, exactly.
We all understand there's like serious, you're going to have to be addressed.
Yep.
But like just because like a door is like slightly ajar or something like that, that doesn't necessarily mean that like you don't get what you don't ask for. So you can't blame people for trying.
For sure. Yeah. And you're totally right, right? It depends who I'm representing. If I'm representing a buyer, especially because like right now with buyers, a lot of the time listings are competitive. It's like a lot of times you do have to come in as is box 1. Yeah. Again, you can do inspections, you can cancel the contract, you're not going to ask for any repairs.
Well, let me ask you this. How many times in your career has there been a list of stuff come back and the clients are maybe a little unreasonable about it and you're like, listen, these 2 items I will take care of for you?
I do that all the time.
Right.
Like I'm talking like buyer, like I'm representing the seller and radon comes back high, and the seller's like at their bottom dollar, and they're like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, dude, it's $500. It's not worth blowing up a deal. And they're like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm like, okay, well, they're about to cancel it. So I'm like, I'll pay $500 to keep this deal going. You know, like stuff like that where it's like.
Yeah. You know, in a car dealership, you have like a cost of sales, like account where it's like, I mean, we're going to give these people formats because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and it's like you
that.
have
exactly.
it's just sort of the cost of
well, the
keeping
issue,
it together.
the problem is like, I'm a third party in this deal, but like emotions get involved.
Yeah.
And with the buyer seller thing, it's almost like a battle of like who's going to win. Okay, like let's just smooth this. It's not that big of a deal.
You get, you know, from my perspective, sometimes, and again, because I'm not as emotionally engaged, you know, a lot of times I don't meet the client until the very end, right? So I don't have that like thing where you're connected to them and you're, you know, and I'm trying to, you know, I'm working in their interest, you know, in terms of the mortgage, but you know, there are times where I can look at it and be like, this is not the thing that you guys think it is, but I can't just say that, right? You have to like understand that. And so it's helpful to have a relationship with an agent so you can sort of, even if it's just so an agent can kind of vent a little bit about what's going on. But
as far as like, you know, if I'm representing a buyer and we're under contract on a house and we're not as is, and they come back, like I had a deal that we closed last month where this house had been on the market for like 100 days. It was a flip company that owned it, and we got under contract, under list price, and then inspections came back, standard, you know, normal stuff for the most part. Radon was high, but my clients gave me a list of like 15 things that they wanted done. Like, like some of it was really, really small stuff.
Yeah.
Like really small stuff. And so I'm like, listen, guys, I'm going to write this up, but like I'm expecting them to like counter us back on some of this stuff. And so the listing agent called me. He's like, what's up with this list? And I was like, I know it's nitpicky. And he's like, yeah, like we're cool doing like this, and this, but like the other stuff is like literally like a trip to Home Depot, like some pocket change, do it yourself on a weekend type of deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, fair enough. We were actually just, you know, again, we were trying to get as much as we can. If you don't ask, you don't get it, right? So whatever. But I totally see it from also the seller side too. Like if I'm representing a seller and I do this all the time, right? We get resolutions back. I'm like, okay, I understand this part of it, but like I think this is like you're reaching now, like you're asking for too much. So like I just had a listing close last week in my Platte City townhome where we had resolutions come back, and some of it we got fixed, and some of it we were like, you guys just want a brand new garage door, right? So it's all negotiations, and so you know it's setting expectation with your buyer or your seller. And just kind of riding that wave as it comes.
Yeah, well, everybody gets it. It's easier to get emotional about it when it's you.
For sure.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's also why for sale by owner deals rarely work out because the owner is doing the negotiating and there's this strong emotional attachment. So it's really hard to kind of have this unbiased, like level-headed reasoning and negotiation in some of these deals.
I would think. The other thing that's crazy about the for sale by owner stuff, like if I'm a buyer, like the last thing I want to do is be walking around with the dude like sitting in the house with me. Right. You know, it's like I've always thought about that. I don't know if you've ever bought a car from an individual, but when I was in that business, people, I'll just go sell it to an individual. I'm like, really? Are you going to like have some stranger walk up, get in your car, and you're going to let him go off? Or you're going to sit in a car with a stranger? And like a house thing to me would be the same. Like the thing about like showing a property, and so I did it for a short period of time, you know, back in the day as well. It's like you want to be able to look to your realtor and be like, this sucks, doesn't it? And him be like, yeah, and you know him or her, and you know that you guys are okay. We understand what we're trying to do.
Well, yeah, that's actually hilarious. You said that because John, I showed him a property a couple weeks ago, and they were doing an open house. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath, like 700 square feet. Yeah. Right. So like we literally can't really go anywhere in the house, like without the agent like in the corner. Right. And so, and there's 2 agents there. So like, I don't know what it was, but you know, we're looking through it and like, we get to like one of the bedrooms. I was like, God, I hate that the agent is here right now. Cause like we can't even like check the kitchen out because like literally like we're like on each other's toes in the kitchen. And so it's just this really awkward thing. But I've also done showings where like an elderly person owned the house and like, they weren't leaving, like, while they did showings. So it's hilarious when I did a showing with the owner and his grandson. and his grandson's like, Papa, what do you want for dinner? I'm cooking chili, you know, and we're like trying to like check out the living room and stuff, and the grandson's room just like smells like weed, and it's like so funny. Yeah.
I mean, I got. You want to hear a story like
I
that
do.
from back in the day?
I
I mean,
do.
this is like 95, 96, and I had a friend of mine, good couple, or good friends of mine, that were looking to buy their first house, and this was in Springfield. And so back then, you know, you would call and you would arrange like the showing time or
Yeah.
whatever, and then, you know.
Would you go pick the keys up from the office? Is
No,
that how it
you would.
was?
There were lock boxes,
Okay.
but you would go out there and you do lock. And so anyway, we looked at a couple houses, and there was this last house that we were going to, and we get in there, and it's just like a wreck. Like I'm like, and we're like laughing at it, like what? These people aren't even like serious,
Right.
blah blah blah. And so we start going down the hallway, and the bedroom door is shut, but as you get closer, you realize people are there.
Oh shit.
And so then I'm like, did I confirm this one? You know? And so I went up to the door and I started to open it something. I mean, that's when I stopped, and you hear something like, hello? And I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. Sorry, I didn't confirm, you know, we're leaving or what. And I'm like, flipping lights off and get like backpedaling out, and I didn't see him, but
That's funny.
It would. I mean, I don't know what was going on, you know, afternoon delight or something like that.
There
But
you
it
go.
was, it was awkward. But they weren't ready for it to be shown at
shown.
all. But yeah, I mean, I think that when you want to have a little bit of privacy when you're looking at it. You and the
for
agent
sure.
be able to like talk it, because
Mhm.
how are you gonna? I mean, if something sucks, you want to be able to say it sucks. Now, you as a realtor might be able to define, like, say, hey, here's what we can do about it, but you're
Yeah.
not going to have that conversation at all.
Yeah, with the owner there. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really awkward. So, but yeah, so, you know, back to the point of like never a perfect house, like, you know, sometimes people have these kind of outlandish, you know, wants and needs for the budget or something, or again, just maybe unrealistic expectations with inspections. And so that would be another major point I've learned, is just like prepping people for that, of like, you know, what inspections actually look like, what's normal, what's not normal. And also that's why I like to learn the market chore that I do for buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
Because again, learn the market. If you're selling, it's okay. You want to list your house way up here when it needs to be here. Let's go look at other houses that are priced here, and let you tell me what you think as far as like, do you think your house compares to this or not? Right. So, and then for buyers, it's like they might say one thing and say, okay, let's go look at what you're pre-approved for, and actually see what's out there, and then we can kind of redefine our list. Right. So it just helps set that realistic expectation as far as, because again, it sucks. Like especially if the realtor leads you on or whatever, and like, oh yeah, we can probably find that, or we'll get you that price or whatever, and then it's just a terrible experience going forward because you set that expectation with the client.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's hard for me to see how a realtor who's really actively engaged with people at all would not, you know what I mean? We would be not setting a good expectation.
Well, that's the issue, right? 71% of agents never sold a house last year.
Yeah.
So they don't know. They don't even know,
Yeah.
and like they don't even know what they don't know.
Right.
Right. So like, oh yeah, that's what Zillow said, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it goes back to, you know, being, obviously, if you're in the community, if you're in the market, if you're familiar with the houses, you know, it gives you some insight to it. So,
yeah, the experience is invaluable, really, when it comes to that.
yeah.
So.
And that's one of the reasons why I like doing the open houses too, though, because I actually get into these properties and see what people are actually
Dude,
dealing with.
I'm sure you have your thumb on the market way better than a lot of lenders.
I mean,
I feel like a lot of lenders don't even step foot in houses.
Yeah, it's easy to, it just becomes like numbers on a paper, or not, you know, numbers in your computer, and there's no like personal part of it. And, you know, I enjoy working with people. I like the problem solving. I like, you know, feeling good about like helping somebody accomplish something that they're looking to accomplish. And so I don't know, I feel like you've got to be in the product, and you know, I don't see how somebody gets into my business and does what I do and does it any other way, unless they just want to sit there and make a lot of phone calls,
right,
and just hope that they're just going to like get a realtor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty charming, but I don't think it really comes across on the phone. You know what I mean? As well as just like,
well, dude, I don't know another lender that hits open houses every weekend like you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not like every weekend. Like, it's still, most weekends, but yeah, it's a it's just easy because if you're driving around on the weekend, you're going to see a sign
Yeah.
and it makes sense to like,
Yeah.
I've never had a bad experience in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen, right? They're gonna swing on you.
No, I mean, that'd be I'd love it.
It'd be
a
a
great
story.
story. I'd make
Yeah.
a reel.
There you go.
Just sit there in the kitchen with my wife and like I'm like on screen with like a black eye.
Yeah, right. Like, so I went to this
Yeah.
open house and
Yeah.
tried to give the open house survival bag. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's funny. So my last point was detaching from the outcome and just having faith that it all works out, right? And so the reason I said that is part of it's do the inspections, right? Like sometimes you get all excited about the house and you get under contract and then the inspections come back bad and now you're just like, defeated, right? And it's hard not to get your emotions involved in this stuff, but really from start to finish, like just detaching till like it's actually a done deal. Difficult to actually do is like the smartest thing to do, right? Because it's like, okay, you get super excited writing an offer, or for a seller, oh, we got an offer, you know what I mean? And then you start looking at it, you're like, oh, it's not that great, or right, or we lost the offer or whatever, right? And then same thing with inspections, buyer or seller, if it falls out, then it's like you get defeated. Same thing with appraisals, right? And then it's really like closing is really where you get to celebrate, because now it's actually it's hard for anything to blow up after closing, right? So,
so it's going to be interesting to see how the spring goes. It seems like it's going to be very similar to last year, but I would get people pre-approved looking in, like just the hottest like neighborhoods, right? Mm-hmm. Like trying to buy in like Prairie Village or Westwood or something like that in a certain price range, and you would see people, the first weekend they're super excited. You're getting the pre-approval letter, you're sending over, and they get outbid, and then it turns in. I mean, I have people that it was like months, 10, 15, 20 different offers. Yep. And so that ability to detach from the outcome, I mean, I guess if you are strong enough to stay in, that detachement's just going to happen naturally. You're going to get numb to it.
Exactly.
But there would be clients that I'd just be like, oh man, and then
I know you feel for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like they think they finally have it, and then. But what's interesting is when they go through that process, they're pretty freaking like transactional by the time. By the time it's done.
My client in Olathe, right? So like super competitive area. Yeah. Super competitive price point. And I don't know how long we've been looking now, maybe a month and a half. She's already like, I'm starting to feel like discouraged. And I'm like, girl, we're just getting started. Like this takes, 4-6 months sometimes to really get it done. I mean, we've lost 2 offers. We've toured probably, I don't know, 10, 12 houses, 15 houses, something like that. And so, you start to see that where like at the beginning, there's a lot of excitement of like, oh, we get to go buy a house or, and then as you start, you just get defeated as you walk through another house that's not the right fit, or you lost another offer, and it just really starts to beat you down emotionally. And I just try to let people know that that's normal. Yeah. And that like it's all just part of the process. And like, again, it sounds really corny, but like it really just all works out how it's supposed to. Like I've had so many houses where like we got it under contract, we thought it was the right house, we go to do inspections, and like the inspections were bad. And it's like, you guys, like that, you would not have wanted that house. You know what I mean? Like, how much headache that would be, or there's so much mold in that thing that like you're going to get sick, blah, 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 whatever. And then next week we get a better house under contract and that one went smooth. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that fell out because now we got this. Yeah. Right.
I have a realtor in Springfield, Mia, that I do a decent amount of business with. And it felt like last summer, like every scenario that we worked, like fell apart in like the inspection process. Or like had something with the appraisal, like literally, like we were under contract, excited. Oh my goodness, this is great. It falls apart. And in every scenario, when we finally, closed on the property, it was a much better scenario. Yeah. And so I can see how, as a salesperson, when I try to explain that to a client, like don't get like it's going to be okay. They can be like, oh, you're just saying that to
right.
But it does seem like it works that way.
It really does. I'd say probably half of my like buyers deals, we've gone under contract and then backed out after inspections because something was like too much for them or whatever.
Do you think it's half of your clients?
Probably half.
Really, that's interesting. Yeah. I would that for no reason whatsoever, I would assume that that seemed like a high number, but I mean, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean,
But you talk to
maybe
other
not.
realtors and listen to them, and like, so everybody
Yeah,
deals with this stuff, right?
yeah. I mean, maybe not quite half, but like a fair number of
Yeah.
like a decent amount. Like it's a not abnormal part of the
Yeah.
process to
You're
like
not surprised when it happens.
yeah, like it's part of the process.
Yeah.
I just tell people I'm like, hey, like we can cancel this if inspections are bad.
Yeah.
Right. So like I just set that expectation, and it happens. Like, and I think like part of my like lesson I've learned is I used to be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
Right. Like me as the realtor used to be attached of like, oh, I really hope this deal closes, especially when I was like really trying to get it off the ground and like trying to quit training. I'm like, I need every deal I can get to closing so that I can stop training. And at that point I was like it really messed with my emotions of like if a deal was super stressful, it got to me, or if you know, a deal fell apart, it would like, you know, mess me up
I
and
know
stuff.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
And so like now I feel like I've built the business up enough and just have enough experience that like now I know it all works out how it's supposed to work out, and everybody's going to be okay, and like everybody's going to be happy in the end, and it's just all part of the process. And any like bad deal or like rough experience that I'm having with a client or a deal is really it's actually good for me because it gives me more experience to then handle that better the next time it happens.
Have you seen? I think it's. I can't remember what movie it was in, but it's got what's his name, Franco, where he's being hung. Have you seen that meme where he's like he's got like the noose around his neck and he's turning to the guy and he's like, "First time, huh?"
Oh, what movie is that, dude? It sounds familiar.
Is that "Oh Brother, where art thou?" I don't know.
I don't know. It sounds
I
familiar.
hate being recorded live and not knowing my
Yeah, no,
references.
right,
It
yeah.
makes me feel like a chump. But anyway, but that's just. But my point is like after you see a number of transactions, you know, it's like you're sort of like you become numb to it, or you just this is part of this is part of the process. It comes and goes. We'll get through it.
Again, it's hard. It's easy for me to sit here now, 30, 40 transactions deep now or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that now. But like, again, it's very difficult for the person going through the process.
Yeah, and
so,
again,
like,
they do it once every 10 years or whatever.
Yeah, and so like it's easy for me to sit here and say detach from the outcome and it's going to work out. But they're like, F you, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the house I wanted, and it blew apart. So, but again, that's part of our jobs, right? It's like manage those expectations, kind of guide them through that process. But again, just to set that up front, like, you guys, this might blow up. Like, we might not close on this house. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And it's like, it's all okay. So, those are probably the three, like, most generally applicable tips that I could really think of for buying a house.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's every transaction is different because the people are different. There tends to be just a handful of like archetypes of like how a transaction is going to go down. And once you have enough at bats and see enough transactions, then you kind of know what to expect, and you can guide people.
Yeah, that's actually perfect because I used to do the same thing with training, right? Like, again, after I'd been training for so many years, I just kind of knew personality types. I'm like, okay, this person probably prefers this way. I'm going to try that, or this way, or that way, or that way.
Yeah.
And so same thing with buying or selling houses. There's different types of personalities that handle stress differently, or handle contracts differently, or handle inspections differently. And so the more experience you get, the better you can kind of navigate that and give everybody involved a better experience.
So how detached are you going to be? Do you expect to be in your?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But I feel like, it's going to be tough. Like when I go to buy my house, right? It's going to be like, but I feel like I've just done enough reps now that like, I know there's always another house.
Yeah.
I know, like, again, if inspections go bad, there's another house. If we lose this offer, there's another house, right? And so it's like, I don't know. I guess I'll I can sit here and talk the talk, but we'll see if I can walk the walk.
Yeah. I think
so.
I think you'll be able to figure it out. So, do we have some?
These are old stats.
Okay.
These are still. I don't think we have. We won't have marches until first week of April.
Well, I think that one of the things on my end that I'm seeing in terms of the market, and this is the lender side of it, is we're starting to see refinance applications start to pick up, and it's not just rates aren't necessarily much better than what they were. They've been at a very similar level, but we're starting to see people, whether it's the opportunity to skip a couple payments or do some access access equity to do other things. That is a piece that really, for as long as I've been in the business, with the exception of like the first like 6 months, like wasn't there. And
Yeah.
now we're starting to see refinance.
I'm curious to wrap us up. You see a lot of people's finances, right?
Yeah.
Do you, I guess, and again, it's all situational.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're seeing more debt, or do you feel like you're seeing, like, what do you feel like the general consensus on like the American public's finances are?
There's more debt.
You feel like, are you seeing wages raise at all? Are you seeing kind of wages stagnant? Are you seeing debt raise? Like, how, when it comes to like people, the average American's finances, what does that look like?
So for me, I really don't. It's, while I look at income and I look at debt, really what I look at is DTI. Like I don't. Those two numbers don't matter as much as what that percentage equates to. Because again, I'm trying to keep most scenarios under 50%.
Right.
And so what I see is, car payments are like really high. Like I don't get it, and I was in that business for a long time. And so, I think the average new car payment's like $700, used cars like $550. I mean, to me, that is like blows my mind.
Yeah.
Credit card utilization is high, so I think that, and that's probably what's pushing the refinance thing. Yeah. Is because people are sort of strapped in a lot of ways, and so
are they trying to like leverage equity out of their
yeah,
house?
I mean that's the thing is you're kind of like easy button in that situation is being a homeowner, because if you bought a home, over a period of time, that equity that you realize, at least it gives you something to tap into to give you some like a release valve there. Yeah. So I'm definitely seeing that. I mean, people still qualify. I mean, I'm still nothing's hitting zero, but it is interesting because I'm doing refinances in scenarios that purchased a home a year ago, and I mean their DTI is higher. I mean there's a reason why they're looking at doing it the way they're doing it now, and so. And I think, there's a lot of unknowns right now in the economy, in the market, all that type of stuff leads to some of the uncertainty that we're dealing with. But the fact is houses keep getting more expensive. I mean, it's still a way to, it's like what was it, like a self-imposed savings account. It's
the forced savings account.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So. But applications overall, I mean, houses are being sold. It's spring in Kansas City, and it seems like there's more energy this year than there has been the last. For
sure, yeah, I definitely think market-wise, like we're feeling the momentum. I think it's going to be a pretty busy spring and summer for sure. Yeah. I was just really curious about like with inflation and affordability and all that stuff. Like it just seems like more and more people have to kind of kick that can down the road with their debt. You know what I mean?
No, it is very, even in a year's time. I mean, just everything's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, everything.
It's hard out here for a pimp.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's more expensive in places other than Kansas City. So I think we're fortunate there. I mean, you get a lot of like, hey, Kansas City's like a hot real estate market, and you see that on social media, and it's true, and it's cool to be a part of that because we have the transactions. But I'm in other markets as well, and it's still, even with all of that, the Kansas City metro is much more affordable than most markets. I was going to say,
Kansas City, I think it was like in one of the top 10 hottest markets of in 2024. Reason being is because we're in the middle. Yeah. Right, so it's a really central location to go all over the place. Yeah, and we're affordable. Like yes, homes are expensive overall, but comparatively to other metro areas, Kansas City is still a great value.
Yeah, and if I say I live someplace like Charleston, South Carolina, for example, I would be all about moving to Kansas City.
There you go. Yeah, boom.
All right,
I think that's the episode.
Yeah, hopefully I don't offend any of your Charleston fan base.
I don't know if I have any Charleston fans. I don't know if I don't know if I made any friends in Myrtle Beach. I got the one guy, but he told me that Myrtle Beach was a shithole.